Hello, this is the Hearts of Iron 4 mod Kaiserredux. It's an unofficial standalone expansion for an alternate history Kaiserreich mod, which is set in a world where Germany won World War I. What we're going to do is see what happens if you let it run itself overnight. I'm going to play as a country that shouldn't get attacked or invaded by anyone, so it should be okay. And before we see what happens, let's just see the state of the world in January 1936, because I don't know what the future holds here. So just to summarize the situation as of this time, we have basically the USA existing, there's Canada, we have South America, Africa is dominated mostly by Germany and all of its puppets. Here there's Deutsche Middle Africa, there's the German Empire, and there is the Commune of France, the Union of Britain, the Russian Republic. It's not really controlling all of Central Asia or Siberia or anything like that, and we have a divided China, and of course there is Japan, and the Ottoman Empire is a thing in this world as of January 1936. And with that, let's see what's going to happen. Much time has passed. The year is now 1957, and that's when in real life in our own world, the Cold War be going on between the US and the USSR. So let's look around here. We'll check out continent by continent and just see what's going on. So in South America, there's like an independent Colombia, and what is this? Brazil no longer exists. Okay, so Brazil has just been split apart, and all these countries are part of the Third International, one in the world. Nearly all of South America is part of the Third International. Wow. That is just nearly the entire continent, except for, say, Ecuador, Colombia, and I think maybe Costa Rica, and they're in Central America. Now let's go over to Africa, and Middle Africa just fell apart, it looks like. We have quite the situation here. We have just, let me look at the faction map briefly. So we have, for one, we have the Cairo axis. Then this whole area is nearly Third International. Then we have the Anti-Goering Pact, and there is an independent just on their own. There is the South Africans, they're just doing whatever. Nabimuland is also independent. We have Tanganyika, they're leading the, who's the leader of the, oh, the leader of the Anti-Goering Pact, that's a faction. It's led by Israel, which is on Madagascar, and Madagascar is split between Israel and I think Madagascar, National Populist Madagascar. Okay, so let's go over to Australasia and see what is happening there. That's Australia and New Zealand. They are, in fact, they're syndicalist, and they're part of the Third International, and they're a puppet of France. Okay. Then over in Indonesia, what was the Dutch East Indies, we have the Empire of Japan. They are occupying it. There is Papua New Guinea. They're a puppet of Russia. Alright then. Continuing onward, Republic of the Philippines, and going into Asia, it seems to be dominated by the Japanese and their subjects and allies. So China is controlled by the Fengtian government, which themselves, they are a puppet of the Empire of Japan. There is the Kingdom of Siam. We have a state of Manchuria, and I think Russia evidently never really controlled Siberia, because Siberia and Vladivostok is controlled by the Supreme Siberian Authority, which is a puppet of Japan. And the only non-faction members here are Nepal, which is fighting Japan, but they don't border Japan. And it looks like the Indian Empire, despite being a puppet of Japan, is not at war with Nepal for some reason. And then it appears, what is going on? The People's Collective of Sikkim is fighting a war with Bhutan. Let me check the casualties for that. Let me just look at the war screen here. So here we have 30,000, 16,000 casualties on one side. What in the world? What in the world here? And then Russia controls Pakistan effectively. This territory would usually belong to the Dominion of Delhi, but it's controlled by Russia. And going over into the Middle East, the Ottoman Empire collapsed, but there is a big Cairo axis here in northern Africa and part of the Middle East. There is a factionless Republic of Iran and Yemen, though. And going over to Europe, it's dominated by the Third International. The German Empire, it's gone. I'm sorry, it's gone. It's just gone, it's gone, it's gone. We have just, what is this? What is this? We have the Socialist Republic of Italy. They took over Italy. There is the Danubian Republic of Councils. They're a puppet of Russia. And Russia seems to be, they're not the faction leader, I think. That's France. But they control a lot of, it's just such a massive faction. What in the world? It's huge. They control nearly everything. Every country, almost all of them, are a part of the Third International. The only exceptions are in Europe, the Kingdom of White Ruthenia, which they're just stuck between every side. There's a member of the Third International. They have no ports at all. Then you have Finland, who's also independent, and they're not part of the Third International, but you think they would be. They're radical socialists. It's the Hellenic Republic. It's Greece. They do have their own puppets, but they're not really part of the Third International. Maybe they're kind of like you could say they're kind of like the Yugoslavia of this world. They're not really fully involved with the Third International, and they're in the Balkans here. They're not involved with the socialist powers or whatever you want to call them. And we have Illyria, and they're independent. Romania is a puppet of the Greeks. Then Bulgaria, I have no clue what's happened here. It is what in the world. Belgrade is controlled by the Greeks, and Serbia just has one state, and they are independent, I think, but they control just that one state, and that's it. And part of Bulgaria is controlled by the Russians, I think, and Bulgaria itself is a puppet of the Hellenic Republic. Maybe the Russians of the Third International didn't want to give Russia, they didn't want to give the Greek puppet of Bulgaria, the puppet that is Bulgaria, they didn't want to give that land to the Greeks. And then you have Albania, who's a puppet of Greece as well. Then Iberia. What has happened here? We have the Iberian Federation, the Portuguese Anarchist Union, and Galicia, and they're all part of the Galicia, what do you call them? They're a puppet of the Union of Britain. There is the Kingdom of Iceland, somehow surviving, despite the fact they're heavily isolated. And let's check out what's going on in the USA. We have, well, it's mostly dominated by members. Part of the Caribbean is controlled by the Third International. Like we have Jamaica and the Puerto Rican Commune. They're puppets of they're both puppets of the Union of Britain, I think. And then there is independent Dominican Republic. We have the Socialist Republic of Haiti, who is they're a puppet of the Dominican Republic, but they're what in the world? Okay, so then we have Cuba. They're independent. Then the USA, the United States of America, is a puppet of the Japanese, and they lost a fair bit of land to Mexico, who also controls a lot of Central America. And there's kind of like a, how to say, vengeance for the Mexican-American War. Even though they don't control all of California, they do control tons of Nebraska. They have Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, all those places, Kansas. And we have Hawaii, controlled by the Empire of Japan. And then going over to Alaska, what? I have no words. The Republic of New Africa is in Alaska, and they had their own faction as well, but they're the only member of it. And I have, okay, that's something that exists in this world, and I believe that's really everything. Let's look at the faction map and just see who dominates the most here. So the Co-Prosperity Spirit, they're in Asia. They dominate most of Asia. That's led by Japan. They're also in North America quite a bit. Alaska, well, the Republic of New Africa has their own, I guess New Africa is Alaska. They have their own faction. Mexico has their own faction. Colombia has their own faction. And elsewhere there is the Cairo Axis and the Anti-Goring Pact. And there is the Third International, which is pretty dominant. They control Europe basically and all of South America. The two most dominant factions overall, globally I would say, are the Co-Prosperity Spear and the Third International. And I guess this is a Red Sun 1,000-year revolution timeline or some situation, I don't know, something like that. This has been quite the outcome for letting Kaiserredux play itself overnight, that is for certain. And with that, I'm going to end this video here. If you enjoyed this mod, you can check it out in the video description. A link to it is there. If you enjoyed this video itself, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.